I'm going to make a bold statement, and that is that most virtual instructor-led training trainers only use 20 to 30% of the tools right in the platform that they're teaching on. So today I'm going to show you some of the things I love to do using the platform Zoom and give you some ideas of how I might use them in a virtual instructor-led training. The first thing I'm going to talk about is reactions. Now, reactions are a really great way to set expectations when you want people to participate. I usually start the session with a little bit of expectation setting around raising their hand when they want to comment or have a question. That just helps me as the instructor. And then I also ask them if they're going to step away from their computer during a non-break time, that they set the be right back so we know that they've left. I also typically will ask them to use reactions and practice at the very beginning. So I will ask them to find their react button, and then I will have them practice some different reactions. I also will teach them how to do those reactions in chat as well. And so those are a little bit different. And I explain the difference that they can put emojis in the chat window, but sometimes I'm going to ask them for a reaction right here. The second thing that you might not be using as often are the annotation tools. So annotation tools are a really great way for people to annotate on your screen. So as the instructor, if I'm the host, I can share my screen. And once I do that, let's just pretend that I had this Canva presentation slide in presentation mode. I don't right now just because of screen size, but I could ask everyone as they enter the session or sometime during the session to use their arrow to identify the image that best describes your day. So has it been a learning day for you? Has it been a day of fireworks? Has it been a day of a slow, easy stroll in the park? Has it been a beachy vacation day? Has it been a unicorn day, or have they been firefighting all day? Then what I ask them to do is use their annotation tools to do this. So your annotation tools are right below in the bottom left-hand corner. You get this little green pencil, this little green, and it says I can drag to move. So I'm going to drag it, but it's going to pop back down below my window anyway. But this little green bar allows them to open it up. And then from here, they get all these annotation tools. And I teach them how to use these annotation tools before we get started. So I might tell them to find the stamp, and I might tell them to star the one that they're feeling the most. And then they can annotate right on my screen. So annotation tools are a really great way to label diagrams, to have them brainstorm. Maybe you just have a blank slide like this one, and you have them share something on this slide. The biggest thing that I teach them, and you just saw me do it, is once they click on a stamp and they're using the stamp, I always remind them they have to select the mouse to get their mouse back and stop stamping. Otherwise, it's like picking up a paintbrush and it doesn't go away until you stop. I also have them practice using the text tool so that they can practice typing on my screen as well. And annotation tools are a really great way to create some warm-up activities, to create some brainstorming and some interactivity. The next one that I want to share with you is spotlighting. So spotlighting is really easy, and you can do this a few different ways. So right now, if there were more people in here, I could change it from speaker view, dynamic gallery, multi-speaker, or immersive. So if I wanted to, let's say I'd have it on speaker view or even multi-speaker, what I would do is just spotlight the person who's talking. So when you hover over, if I go back to gallery, if you hover over their name, either here or if I open up participants here, I can actually hover over somebody's name, and then you'll see it'll say spotlight, and you can actually spotlight the person so that you can bring them up on stage while they're talking. That's really helpful to highlight them. It's easiest to do when you have a producer. So if you have a technical producer, they're spotlighting people while you're facilitating. The other one that you might not use are built-in polls. You have a built-in poll feature, polls and quizzes right here. It's typically under your More tab down at the bottom. And then if you go from there, go into polls and quizzes. From here, I can create polls, and I can also do quizzes, and they call them surveys now. but I can create those. Polls are probably something most people are using. But if you're not, I would highly recommend using those either built-in polls to ask about their background, ask what they know about a topic, ask them what they're thinking. I also do it on pacing. So how's my pace? Too fast, too slow, just right? I'll do that sort of after maybe 30 minutes of the session. I'll launch a poll and ask them how my pacing is. The other one that I want to share with you is whiteboards. So whiteboards is another one that you may not use. Whiteboards, if you go to the three dots under more and you select whiteboards, you can either pull up existing whiteboards or a new whiteboard. A whiteboard is just going to be, and you've got a new they've rolled out this new whiteboard. It saves your work and does some other things. And in this whiteboard, this allows everyone to annotate on the screen. So I might ask them a question, open a whiteboard to debrief after maybe a breakout room, and then I'm going to have them debrief on the actual board itself, so I could have them go through. The newer board adds some additional features. The new whiteboard, what you're going to see is it's got a few more options. You've got equations, you've got, I think post-it notes are down here, so they can actually create a post-it note. They can change the color very easily. They can add shapes. So there's a little bit more that they can do in terms of tools. They can add charts, they can add mind maps, you can add all kinds of things. So check out the whiteboards. If you're not using those to debrief activities, to gain commitment from people, to ideate, if you're brainstorming, whiteboards are a great way to do that. Another feature that I didn't share in the blog this week as a piece of the platform you might not be using is breakouts, because I do think a lot of people use breakouts. I do also think a lot of people use them ineffectively. So that's probably a whole nother video of how to use a breakout really effectively. We'll save that for another day, but I do want to share with you just breakouts in general. So when you come down to your More button and you go to Breakout Rooms, you can assign breakout rooms 3 different ways, and I'll tell you why I might use them differently. So assign automatically is automatically going to just randomly put them into the number of breakout rooms that you want. So for example, if I need 2 breakout rooms, I can assign them automatically. It's going to randomly put people in the rooms. If I assign them manually, it is going to allow me to move them into certain rooms and get that structured the way I want. That's really great, but difficult if you're the only facilitator, because for you to take the time to move people into breakouts might not be ideal depending on what people are working on. The way I typically will do it, if I'm going to do it that way and I don't have a producer doing that for me, I would typically have them do a reflection, maybe a question or something to think about before they go into the breakouts, because they're going to have better conversation when they get there. So what I would do is I would have them work on that. I'd start some music. I'd have them doing some reflection in their workbook. And while they're doing that, I would assign people manually to each room. And then when they're done reflecting, then I can get those launched. The third reason, or the third way, is to let participants choose a room. So I might do this, maybe they did some pre-work before they have come. Let's say I'm teaching DISC and they took their DISC assessment and they know what they are. They're a D, I, S, or a C. And so I might have them choose their room based on their pre-work. So all the Ds go into a room, all the I's go into a room. And in that case, I would let them choose the room specifically. I would name the rooms DISC, and they would choose the room they want to go into. You could also do it based on topic. So if you wanted them to be able to go in and have some discussion around something that really interested them, that you taught as a debrief activity, you could have 4 different rooms with 4 different topics, and they could choose to go debrief the topic that they wanted to debrief. It gives learners control, and it really allows them to apply what matters to them, which is a great adult learning opportunity. So that is breakout rooms. Once I create them, let's just do them automatically. I don't actually have anyone in the session with me right now, but I did 2 rooms, and from here, it would automatically put people in the rooms they needed to go into. But here's where I think people maybe make some mistakes. The first thing is under options. and that is to allow participants to return to the main session. I always check that. You can check these however you like, but I'll show you how I typically do it. Automatically move all assigned participants into breakouts when they open. So I want it to automatically move them. And so I typically have that checked. Now, occasionally, if they didn't move or they've left or they got dropped or something, sometimes, even though I'm automatically moving them, they might have to select at the bottom of their screen, join breakout. That occasionally will happen, and I just talk them through doing that. I do not move people in the waiting room into breakouts typically, and I automatically move all selected participants in breakout rooms to main session. I typically don't do that either. I do, however, set the rooms up for a certain period of time. So if this is going to be an 8-minute breakout room, I usually have this checked and I have them come back in 8 minutes, but it automatically closes the room and brings them back. If you don't want that and you want to time it yourself, then you're going to uncheck that. And then that means you have to watch the clock. And I'll show you a timer in a minute, but you have to watch the clock and make sure that they're in there for the appropriate amount of time. I like to do this. Now, the disadvantage of doing this is that if you forget to change this and the next one is 15 minutes and you don't change it, they're going to pop back after 15 minutes rather than 8 or 10 or whatever you're trying to do. You can select that little icon or that little notify me, and then it'll prompt you and say, time is up. Do you want to bring them back? And then it gives you that choice. You can check that. I usually do 30 or 60 seconds. I tend to go 30 seconds because that keeps my timing a little tighter. So if I say to everybody, hey, you have 15 minutes, really they have 15 minutes and 30 seconds versus 16 minutes. Over the course of a long session, if you make this 60 seconds, that's going to add up because now you're adding a minute to every breakout, and that might affect your timing. So just food for thought when it comes to some breakouts. To rename your breakout, I don't know if you saw that when I hovered over it, you just click on it, rename it. Let's say this is going to be feed forward. And if people want to talk about feed forward, I'd move them to that room or they could self-select. Then once you're ready, you can open all rooms. And when you do that, if I open all rooms, I want to show you something. This is fairly new in the last 6 to 8 months, probably a year, I bet. You can plan the next session. So while everyone's in their breakouts, especially if you don't have a technical producer, you can be planning the next breakout and get that set up so it's ready to go. This is a really strong feature. The other strong feature is the broadcast. So you can broadcast a message. I usually do this when they have half the time left. And then I also do it when they have about 1 to 2 minutes left. I give them a broadcast message. I will typically say, you have 10 minutes left. And then I'll broadcast that and they'll get that little pop-up in the breakout room. The other thing that I don't use very often, but it's here, is this broadcast voice. So I can also come in with my voice and tell them that in the breakout. I feel like it's a little creepy when I do that. So I don't typically use that. I usually use the broadcast message, but you can use either, whatever works for you. If somebody comes in, I can add a room. If I have 3 people come in and I need to create a new room, I can do that. And when I'm ready, I can just close all rooms. And when I close all rooms, it brings everyone right back. I can also recreate these at any time. I usually uncheck that because I usually don't want my co-host to get moved to a breakout room. That is breakout rooms. The other thing I want to share with you is asking to start video. So I usually set the expectation before the session ever starts, and I tell them that video is the expectation, that they should have their video on. And if they can't have the video on that day, then it's probably best that they reschedule for a different day, because connecting with others in the course is really critical to the content. Some organizations have other policies around that, but I'm a big believer that when your video is on, you better connect with the people in the session. So that's the first thing that I would share. If they have not turned on their video, you do have some options where you can ask them to start their video. So you basically will just give them a prompt. You can click on their name is the easiest way to do it when they're in your session. Click on these three little dots that are over next to their name, and then ask them to turn their video on. And then if they choose not to, I don't push it, but I do make a note of it and let whoever I'm facilitating for, let them know that this person was pretty adamant not to turn on their video. And that's just something that I want them to know. The other thing that you can use are Zoom docs. So something else you might not be using are the docs. So if you again go under more and then go to docs, this actually opens up a Zoom doc. It's like a word processing doc. Again, it's a great way for groups to collaborate on a document when they're in a breakout room, or you can collaborate. So you might open up a document, and the reason I might do it this way is because I might want to create a collective document of ideas that we all brainstorm on, and then I send it out after the session. So there are lots of templates that you can choose from. You can do agendas, but then you can do content calendars, you can do notes, all kinds of different templates are already in here, a brainstorming meeting. So you could also create your own document, and you could bring that up, and then you can allow them to co-edit that document. The next one that you might not use, and this is just a fun one that changes the perspective of the session, and that is under this View tab. So if you go to the View and you go to Immersive, allows you to choose a view where you bring people into a different space. And what happens is they will either they'll appear in whatever background you choose. So they'll appear in the chairs, or they'll appear on the wall, or they will appear on this one in it's almost like a training room that has rows. Maybe you want to bring them into a more fun setting. You could bring them into something like this. There's lots to choose from. The advantage of this is it just creates a different experience for people, and they get to see people in a way other than the Hollywood squares. In order to use this, they have to have been on an upgraded version. So if they're running on a Zoom version that's super, super old before this came out a few years ago, then they might not be able to participate. Additionally, I don't believe it works if they're using the browser. So the other thing I do before I teach a session, I always send out an email that tells them to do some things. Make sure they're on the latest version of Zoom. Make sure that they're using the desktop version, not the browser version. That way they have maximum functionality. And then I always give them some expectations, typically around video and audio. So I ask them to do that. The final piece that you probably aren't using that I really want to point out for you, and that is the apps. So there are hundreds and hundreds of apps that you can bring in. Some are native to Zoom, like Zoom built them, so they're free. Others, you have to have a subscription somewhere else and you can use that app. So for example, some of them that I use AhaSlides, because I have a subscription to AhaSlides. So when I do like word clouds and I do polls and I do things like that, I use the built-in AhaSlides so I don't have to leave Zoom. It's right here. I also have an AI note taker that I use, which is Fathom. I also have a subscription to Mural. This is like my project plan tool that I use. It's like Asana or something like that. One of them that's actually by Zoom is their music. This is royalty-free music that you can use to start your session. I use music a lot when people are reflecting. So if I have a reflection question and then I give them 2 to 3 minutes to reflect in their workbook, I will typically put on some sort of reflection music. The nice thing about this is it's automatically shared through your Zoom app, and you don't have to do as much troubleshooting as if you were to play it off of Spotify or something else. You also don't have to worry about the royalty issues depending on what type of content you're facilitating. The other one that I use a lot is this one right here, and that is timer. The timer allows you to set a timer, either preset time or to start or stop a timer for your session. So I could start at 5. Let's say that I was doing some sort of discussion, or I do in my Ignite Learning community, I'll do a hot seat, open office hours, and I give everybody 5 minutes. So if somebody has a hot seat question, I start the timer for 5 minutes, and then they have 5 minutes to present their question, and then I'll answer the question within 5 minutes. This makes sure that everybody who's in the call can get a chance to speak. So timers are really nice because you can see them right in the window. You can also use this in breakout rooms. So if you have this and you go into a breakout room, you can use the timer as well that way. It shows not only on my screen, but it also shows up here. So you can even set that timer and then take a break and it'll be ready to go. You also have this stopwatch feature as well. So you can use either one. And I'm going to go ahead and pause that. The third app that I really love is Prezi Video for Zoom. This is mostly free. You can do a paid version, but I use the free version. And what it does is it allows you to add text to your screen. So the first thing you're seeing right now is my name tag. So it shows my name tag at the very bottom. This is a little bit large. So what I could do is if I had an upgraded plan, I could change the text a little bit. It basically just pulls in what it reads from my profile. So if I went to my participant panel and I changed my name here, so if I rename myself here, then I just do ZPS. This allows you to add text to your screen. So you're going to see a couple of things. You see my logo right up here. I've added that logo. I did that over here under look. I can change my color scheme if I want to. So if I wanted it to be in green, if I wanted it to be in this orangish color, a reddish color, I could change that. I could add my logo or remove my logo, and I can have it on the left or the right. And I have mine on the left. The other thing you can do is you can add text to your screen. So if I wanted to add an image as people are entering, I could say something like, welcome. And I could actually put that right here on my screen. I can also remove the graphic. So I can remove the visual and I can just add text. Welcome to our session. Now, this allows me to welcome people and leave my video up. So this is really handy so that you can keep your camera on and you don't have a slide displayed. This is a really great option. So this is my kind of my last favorite app, but if you go to the marketplace for Zoom, you will find so many different apps that you can add to your Zoom instance, and I highly recommend you do it. Those are some things that maybe you're not using in your sessions. I hope you learned something new. And stay tuned. We've got one coming up for Microsoft Teams and for Adobe Connect.